it's Care. Happy Halloween. Today I'm bringing you a very much needed reading wrap up. I've not updated any of my reading progress since about July. I really didn't read much in August, only a few books. I have my Goodreads link in the description if you're interested in keeping up with everything I read as I read it. But today I am going to talk about everything that I read in September and in October. I read 7 books in September and 7 books in October. I'm not going to talk about any reading stats today. In the past few videos where I've done that, I go back and watch and they're just wrong. They're not correct. I am not a mathematician or a statistician. I'm not a math person, hence the literature degree and the BookTube channel. So I'm just gonna go down the list of the order that I read these books. I'll have timestamps for everything I read in September and then everything I read in October if you're just super interested in that breakdown. But I'm just gonna go ahead and start with the first book that I read in September, which was The Guest List by Lucy Foley. Let me slide over so I can put up a picture here. I got it from my library, which is actually gonna be a huge theme in this video. I did a lot of library reading this month. A few that I checked out from the library, and then like the ebooks I checked out from the library. I read this via ebook and I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. I think this was a really fun and atmospheric read, and I think a lot of thriller fans really would enjoy this book. I think that for me, since it does have an isolated setting, and that's my favorite trope in thrillers and horror, and just really any book in general, my hopes were a little bit too high here. It's about this couple who was getting married on this remote island, and during the reception, somebody is murdered. So you go the entire book, you don't know who has been murdered, and you don't know who the killer is, and so you go the whole book with all of these multiple perspectives. It's actually surprisingly easy to follow sometimes with multiple perspective narratives. It's easy to get the narrators confused with one another. I actually thought it was very easy to understand, and it was a very good plot. I kind of feel like it's one of those books where it's been done before, but at the same time I can't, like, off the top of my head name books that it reminds me of. Do you ever get that feeling? Even though it was a little predictable, I do think it was really entertaining, and I think that fans of thriller books won't mind the predictability if you like this genre. Next, I read The Stranger Diaries by Ellie Griffiths. This is another one that I read the ebook. I read the ebook on Scribd, and y'all, it was so much fun. I actually wish I had read this book in October, earlier this week, even closer to the Halloween season, just because it was such a fun, cozy mystery. It uses that really cool book within a book plot device, and I love that in books. It's about this teacher who's obsessed with this author, writes really spooky, scary books, and one of her co-workers is found dead. She's presumably been murdered, and the death kind of links with one of the books that this other teacher is a fan of, so it kind of wraps her into the case, whether she knows it or not, or whether she is even involved in the case or not. It is a detective story, so we do have some detective POVs, but I really love Harbinder Kaur. This is the Harbinder Kaur series. The second book's not out yet, but she is the main detective, and I think she was so cool. She was so witty, and this was just such a fun book. 4 out of 5 stars. Highly, highly, highly recommend this book. The only reason I didn't give it 5 stars is just because I guessed the twist really early on, but my defense is it's one of those books where they lay out the clues for you and you can put it together. Like, you can put together the mystery if you're interested in doing so, if you really want to pay attention. If you just want to go on autopilot and just read the book and turn your mind off though, you can totally read this book and probably be surprised by the ending, and I hope you all go read it. Next, I read The Turn of the Key by Ruth Ware, and I have to say, this is one of my favorite books that I've read in a while. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. This book is about a woman who takes a job that kind of sounds too good to be true, only to find out it kind of is too good to be true. I made a video all about my favorite very specific book tropes. That's one of the very specific book tropes I mentioned in that video. I'll put it in the cards up here if you're interested. It's very like Lock Every Door vibes, and also if you've watched the most recent The Haunting show on Netflix, The Haunting of Bly Manor, this book kind of reminds me of that as well. But it's about this woman who takes a job being a nanny in this big isolated house. It's actually like a smart house. Everything is controlled by tablets and voice commands, and it just adds this element of kind of like science fiction to the book. It's not really. I think that I just am not good with technology, so this house just seemed like it's from the future. I'm sure that houses like this probably exist. If you know me, I am a really tough critic of Ruth Ware, so this is by far my favorite book that she has written so far. The only reason I didn't give it 5 stars is because the ending kind of went off the rails for me yet again. That's pretty much my main problem with all of her books, but this was such a fun ride. I read this over the course of about 2 days, which I'm a really slow reader, so that was very fast for me. I really couldn't put it down, so I do recommend this book as well. All right, I'm about to get some hate for this one, and I'm okay with it. I am at peace with the situation. One by One by Ruth Ware. First disclaimer I want to say, if you read this book and you enjoyed this book, then I am really happy for you. I say that every time I give a bad review. I just don't want to ever give off the impression that like you should not read this book, or if you read this book then your opinion isn't valid if you liked it. This book just, I gave it 1 star. Oh, where do I begin? So One by One is about this group of co-workers who go on this work retreat in the snowy mountains where they're gonna go skiing and bond and whatever. And once they get there, of course, there's a disagreement and they start going either missing or showing up dead one by one. Here is my defense for why I gave this book 1 star. Ruth Ware is often referred to as the Agatha Christie of our generation, and I'm not even a huge fan of Agatha Christie's works, but I really did like And Then There Were None. When I read that, I've read a few Agatha Christie books. That one is my favorite by her. To make her nod to And Then There Were None, this book, it didn't add up for me. Like, I'm sorry, but I can't. We have multiple perspectives here, and I could not distinguish the voices from one another. The female characters were all the same to me. I kept having to like flip back to make sure that I was in so-and-so's chapter. Like, it was really confusing to me, and I read a lot of multiple perspective books. Like, I felt like it shouldn't be that hard. I really don't mind a slow burn, and I've said it before, I'll say it again. I like boring books. I enjoy reading boring books. If the book's gonna be boring, I at least want it to be good character development or something building towards a point of contention or a conflict. Like, yes, there is a huge conflict at the end of this book, but it's just not what I wanted. So I'm just gonna stop while I'm ahead, push that one aside, and move on to the next book. Thank goodness I read I Let You Go by Claire McIntosh next. And it is gonna be a front runner for my favorite book of 2020. I'm not even kidding y'all. If you like twists in books, this has the most insane twist I've ever read in a book. Like, I'm not kidding, and I actually, I checked this one out from the library as well, so I don't have it. But I can't even tell you what it's about because I'm scared that I'm somehow subconsciously gonna give the twist away to you. All I can say is it's about this young boy who was killed in a car accident at the very first few pages of the book. And, and the consequences for everybody else that comes with that tragedy. That's all I'm gonna say. Now, this is a slow burn, but the payoff is immaculate, you guys. You have to check this book out if you like thrillers and you like good twists. Next, I read Mexican Gothic by Silvia Moreno Garcia. When I put this on my, I think I put it on my September TBR, I had so many comments going, I am eagerly awaiting your thoughts. Well, here they are. I gave this 4 out of 5 stars. Buddy read this with Jess from Books Past Bedtime. I'll put her channel in the description. She's great. I did not think I was gonna like this book. This book has about 300 pages exactly, and it took me to page like 210-ish to even feel interested in the story, but it was so weird, y'all. This is a horror book about this main character, Nomi, who must go to the Mexican countryside to try to save her cousin, who has recently written to her saying that she thinks she's being poisoned, or she thinks that something is wrong with her. So Nomi has to go to her rescue. Once she gets there to this huge, decrepit, gothic mansion, they're like, nothing's wrong with her. Look away. And she's like, no, I'm gonna stay. I wanna talk about how much I love some of the characters, but I also don't wanna spoil anything about this book, but just know that this book has some of my favorite characters of 2020, and it also just takes a turn towards like the last, I don't know, like 70-ish pages that no one could see coming. You can't see where this book is going, and I think it's really interesting, and I think it's really unique. I can honestly say I've never read anything like this book, and if you're interested in reading it and you start it and think it's kind of slow, maybe just try to keep going if you really want to read it, because it's pretty short, and I think that the payoff is really, really cool. The last book I read in September was The Hunting Party by Lucy Foley. I was just talking about the guest list. I liked that book enough to try her first book or previous book. I don't know how many books she's written, but I also gave this one 3 out of 5 stars. I actually do think I enjoyed this one a little bit more than the guest list. This one is also an isolated setting, but make it snowy. It's multiple perspectives yet again, and this time it's this old group of friends who goes out to this remote fancy lodge, and they're gonna celebrate New Year's Eve together. And they get there, and at the very beginning of the book, you know that someone has died, and you don't know who has died, and you don't know who the killer is. I feel like I've said that earlier in the video. I read a lot of books like that. So there are a lot of characters in this book. I think there's 10 people total. There are definitely 10, if not 12 people total in this book who are all like in this isolated setting that you have to be pretty familiar with in order for the plot to move pretty quickly. But if you decide to pick this up, just pay attention right at the beginning, kind of when they're explaining who everyone is. And if you get it down early, then the rest of the book is pretty easy. It wasn't super memorable, but I did enjoy reading it. All right, moving right along into what I read in October. I also read 7 books, the first being 9 Perfect Strangers by Leanne Moriarty. This is the same author as Big Little Lies, and I absolutely loved that book earlier this year. 9 Perfect Strangers I thought was going to be really scary and suspenseful. I mean, I guess it was kind of suspenseful, but it was suspenseful because I had no idea what was going on, and it kind of took really until the end of the book to figure out what was even going on in the plot. And this is a very long book. It's about this random group of strangers. There are 9 of them, as the title suggests, and they go to this health retreat, and they're all there for different reasons. And then once they get there, the retreat is not what they thought it was going to be. And I thought it was fun. I thought the characters were cool, and it was definitely unique. Like, this is unlike anything I've ever read. It definitely takes a dark turn, not in the way that I was expecting, but just really heavy subject matters. Like, some of these people have really, really dark trauma and dark pasts that they have to live with. And it was unsettling, but not in a thrilling way. It was like, that's very depressing type of way. You know, it's not really what I was looking for. I gave it 3 stars. I liked the writing style. It was actually surprisingly funny. I know I was like, this book is depressing, but it's also funny. But it just had a strange tone. Like, it was kind of all over the place. I definitely want to read more from this author, but I don't think I was the right audience for this book. Oh, you guys, I read Kill Creek by Scott Thomas, and I gave it 4.5 out of 5 stars. I rarely give half-star ratings, but I do want to bump this from 4 to 4.5 just because of how unique and amazing this book was. This is one of the only books I've ever read that has actually scared me. Just read this one at night, like right before you're gonna go to bed, and you probably will have some nightmares. I definitely did. This book is about 4 authors who kind of get lured into this PR stunt where they're all going to go stay in a haunted house overnight and do a series of interviews. They're all horror authors, but very different types of horror writing. And they get there and they're like, this house isn't haunted, we're not scared. And then stuff starts going down. What I really did not expect from this book is that this book follows the wide-ranging effects of them, like after they leave as well. And it was just so mind-blowing. I really thought Scott Thomas did a good job of making everything make sense. There were just points in the book where it did drag a little bit, but I was just so interested in the story that I didn't mind. I just kept going. So yeah, 4.5 out of 5 stars. Give this one a read if you want to be scared. Next, I read The Shadows by Alex North. I read this for the Page Turner Book Club. I will link the video in the description. I gave it 3 out of 5 stars, and after going to that live show, I've come to terms with the fact that I don't even think I know what the book is about, and I read the book. It's very complicated. This is the same author as The Whisper Man. Oh, you know what? I actually just did a reading vlog all about this book. If you want to hear my full thoughts, I will put the vlog up here. But for now, I'll just say it's about this group of teenagers who figure out how to know that they are dreaming. So they tap into these lucid dreams, and then what they're doing in their dreams, they can try to make it a reality. I don't think I understood what the book was about. But there's a dual timeline going on. So that's the first timeline. The second timeline is this man returning home to his sick mother. And he was one of the teenagers, part of the dream hopping going on amongst the youths in the town. This was fun. It was spooky. I'm glad I read it, but I have the same thoughts and the same problems that I had when I read The Whisper Man, just in that, like, yes, it's such a cool idea and I was so excited to read it, but then it just didn't do it for me. It didn't live up to the hype, but I do recommend it if you like have more brain power than I do. Like, I just did not have 2 brain cells to rub together to finish this book. I powered through and did it. I read it in like a day, which is rare, but I chalked that up to my book club deadline and also short chapters. Those were a lifesaver. If something has short chapters, I will fly through it. Next, I read Leave the World Behind by Rahman Alam, and I have an unpopular opinion on this book because I thoroughly enjoyed it. I thought this book was great. It's very short. It was my book of the month pick for October. It's about this white, I would say upper middle class family going to vacation. I think they're going to the Hamptons, but they're going to this Airbnb situation. They get there, they're enjoying their time off for a little while. They are so far away from anything, like any type of civilization or town or neighbors. Like there's no one out where they are. In the middle of the night, they get a knock on the door and it is the owners of the house where they're staying. And it is a black older couple, and they bring the news that there is this mass power outage and that they don't know what's going on. So then from there, they don't have any cell service, they don't have, like, they can't get on the internet, they can't watch TV, and they are just absolutely away and out of touch with this national crisis, if there even is one. They don't know if they can trust this couple. They don't know what's going on. The writing style is very strange. It's almost a stream of consciousness. The author will often go off on these, from the characters' perspectives, these first person either rants or just like thought processes, but I absolutely love that in books because it really puts me in the minds and the lives of the characters. And also, I really think that the claustrophobic writing style of just this rambling prose really made me feel anxious, and it made me have this sense of dread while I was reading. I would not categorize this as a thriller. I would probably say literary fiction, maybe literary suspense, something like that. Next, I read a book community favorite, My Best Friend's Exorcism by Grady Hendrix. I like Grady Hendrix. He's weird, he's quirky. His writing style gives me problems sometimes. I gave this 3.5 out of 5 stars. I think that since this was such a love letter to the 80s, that it would have meant more to me if I had understood more of the nostalgia that was going on. But the character development in this book is through the roof. I really liked these characters, and I like how he does that in his books. This is a really cool coming of age story about two girls who are best friends, and one of them becomes possessed, and then the other one feels like she has to do everything in her power to save her best friend. And the friendship themes in this book were really heartwarming. They were really touching, but I think it was just the horror aspects that didn't come through for me like I wanted them to. This is very much a slow burn, and there is a cool exorcism, obviously. It was slower than I thought it was going to be, especially since it's so beloved on BookTube. I don't know how to rate or review this book, obviously. I'm just gonna put it down now. Then I listened to an audiobook. It was super fun. It was A Study in Charlotte, which is a book about the so-called great whatever granddaughter of Sherlock Holmes and the great grandson of Watson, and they team up and solve crimes. It was really fun. I gave it 3 stars. This is young adult. I don't read much young adult, but I'm not like knocking the score down just because it's YA. Like, I actually think this dealt with some really serious and dark topics. I feel like we kind of just skated over some really serious stuff, and it was handled well, but I just think there were some places where I really wanted it to go there and it just didn't go there. I actually just went and checked out the second book in the series though from the library, so it's not so bad that I wouldn't continue reading. I thought it was fun and cozy, but at the same time, I'm not like singing its praises. All right, lastly, my most highly anticipated book for this whole video, Home Before Dark by Riley Sager. I'm such a Riley Sager stan, and I don't go easy on him, but at the end of the day, I highly recommend anything he's written. He is such a fun author. His books are so unique to me, and I think that Home Before Dark is a really good story. We have a book within a book in this one, which again, I love that. So in the first timeline, we have this woman who is returned to a house that she briefly lived in as a child, and the house was so haunted that she and her family fled in the middle of the night. So she's back, she's gonna renovate this house, try to sell it, whatever. And then in the second timeline, it's actually the second book within the book, and it is the book that her father had written about this haunted house. So you're going the whole book hearing about these hauntings going on from both of the books within this book, and it's creepy and fun and so entertaining. I gave this book 4 out of 5 stars, which might be a little high, but I just enjoyed every single page of this book. I thought it was so easy to read, but also like the plot was really good. I did not see, there were like some really fun twists going on in this book, and there was actually one scene that kind of got to me a little bit, I'm not gonna lie. I really recommend this one if you're looking for a fun ghost story, but that it's not too scary. All right, well, that's everything that I read in September and October. Let me know what you guys read in the past few months. I will see you in the next video, which is hopefully going to be my November TBR. I have a lot of fun books planned. As always, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.